2, 1. Hello, football fans, and welcome to the Rouge Radio Playoff Preview. I'm Kevin Garbuio, and I'm joined by JP Shoiry from acrofootball.com. JP, thanks for joining us.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be with you.
So we're going to start off just with the games out west. We have Regina hosting Saskatchewan. Who do you like in that one? What should we look for? Are we going to have Mark Mueller playing?
Well, I think so. He hasn't played last week, with his team winning against Calgary. So that tells you that Regina is a pretty strong team. And now this week he comes in, he plays a little bit, throws an interception. Not a big performance, but obviously I haven't seen the game. But what I think is that they probably tested him out, see if everything is good with his health. But I expect Mark Mueller to be at his at the helm of the offense next week. Fifth-year player obviously doesn't want to miss out his last shot at a conference title. So next week, Saskatchewan, Regina, you're talking about two good teams. Regina on one side, they're built for this year with a lot of fifth-year players. And you have to expect, Regina to come out on top of this one. They're second in the conference. They beat Calgary. They're a well-balanced team. So obviously, it's a football season. So now everything that you've done throughout this season doesn't count really much. But one thing is certain is that this Regina football team is pretty strong. As for Saskatchewan, and I'm trying to look up the stats right now. They're on a 3-game winning streak. So they'll be playing at Regina next week. They lost to Regina 35-26. Early in the season, that was the fourth game of the season. And for now, these last 3 games, winning it big, 44-39 against Manitoba, then 27-10 to Alberta, and then this weekend against UBC, 52-24. So you're talking about an offense that really is scoring a lot of points recently. And that's probably what they're going to need to do is produce offensively to beat that Regina team. I think Regina comes out on top because of the leadership of Mark Mueller, having that veteran quarterback, in the playoff position. I just think Mueller has the edge, given that he's healthy and going full out. But, I expect Regina to come out on top, and then we should have a good matchup the next week, with Calgary that's probably going to come out on top of their matchup.
Well, Calgary last week playing against Manitoba, Calgary winning 78-54. Exciting matchup there. I know as a quarterback you probably love seeing those numbers. Do you see a repeat of that, or do you see Calgary shutting it down in the first round of the playoffs? Their defense has looked phenomenal this season.
Oh yeah, Calgary has been really solid. Both on offense, on defense. They're top of the boards in almost everything, in almost every category. We can talk a bit about this game. Calgary, Manitoba. That they just played each other this weekend, like you said. It's ridiculous numbers. Calgary has scored 21 points in the first quarter, 42 points in the second quarter. I've never seen so many points in one half. Total offense, Calgary, they put up 776 yards of total offense, 557 through the air, 225 on the ground. You look at that, Mercer Timmins, which is not necessarily their star running back, given that that's Stephen Lumbala, but Mercer Timmins this week had 13 carries, 52 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So right now, Calgary is looking really solid offensively. Eric Zolewski, 25 of 27, 318 yards, 2 touchdowns. So right now you're talking about a team that was strong all season. They lost last week. Really unexpected turn of events. With that loss where their offense that has been producing at the high level, over 40 points a game, losing 12-9 against Regina with only 9 points scored. So you have to wonder, what happened after that defeat. But I like a team like Calgary, to face some adversities in the season. And now that loss against Regina has probably kept everyone in the locker room alert and say, hey guys, this is going to be easy. This is some CIS football, and we want to come into the playoffs with good momentum. So this performance, 78-54, is just a good sign on their part. You could be questioning 54 points allowed. That's a lot, but at half it was only 14 points that were allowed. 14 points. Manitoba scored 14 in the third and 26 in the fourth, and you have to expect by then, Calgary was probably playing their second stringers, maybe third stringers out there. So those points, they don't look good on the stat sheet, but really, you're not talking about Calgary, having their defense, not stepping up to the situation. They allowed 14 points a game in this season, so 170 points all season long, with 54 in this weekend. So really, their defense, like you said, really solid defense and on offense. So right now, I think Calgary is obviously going to win that matchup. They've shown us this weekend that they have what it takes to move on. But I'm looking forward to the conference final, with Calgary hosting that one, and probably Regina coming in. But you have to expect a good matchup in this strong Can West division. But maybe we could just talk a little bit more about Manitoba, just before we skip out to another conference. They 4-4. They had a good season, losing out to Calgary, winning against Alberta, UBC. But really, what happened for this Manitoba team is that they just haven't won the big games. Losing out 30-27 to Regina, and then losing out 44-39 to Saskatchewan. So it's just winning 37-31 against UBC. So when games have been tight, they haven't come out on top of that matchup recently. Early in the season, they won some tight games, but later on, you have to, they're losing out those battles. So you have to look at things as how is this team going to react? With the last game that just happened, losing out big to Calgary, and I just don't think that they have what it takes to beat a powerhouse like Calgary.
Well, Calgary looks like the team to beat it coming out of that conference. It just seems to be loaded at all positions. We talk so much about their offense and then their defense as well, standing on their heads, and aside from that game, but with the season locked up, they're probably getting some of the reserves in. Now moving on to the OUA. Queens versus Guelph's an interesting matchup. Who do you have now? And last time they played at Guelph ended up roaring back with 30 unanswered points to take the lead. Do you see Queens allowing that to happen, or do you see Guelph being the team of destiny right now?
Well, I like Queens. I like Queens for many years. I think they're a good, well-balanced team, and most of all, well-coached team. Pat Sheehan has his team exactly where he wants. Coming in the playoffs, they would have liked to host that playoff game, but things happen, and then you have to move on. And I think that Queens is going to come in prepared. They have a strong offense. You're talking about at quarterback Billy McPhee, a young guy, but with really a lot of experience. And right now for him, is he going to be able to manage the football, take care of the football, and not create too many turnovers? With 9 interceptions in the season, and I've followed his season a lot, and that's one thing is, when they didn't perform as well is when McPhee turned the ball over. So right now, and I'm sure Coach Sheehan is on Billy every day in practice, but it's all about protecting the football, and in the playoffs, that's two things. It's protecting the ball and discipline. And right now, you have to think that Queens is going to come in prepared. Like I said, with McPhee, but also their running game with Ryan Granberg, second leading rusher in the country. So they have a really balanced offense, and I think that offense is going to produce without a doubt. When you're talking about on the other side, Guelph, nobody really expected them to be that strong. Finishing second in the conference and hosting a playoff game. They're on I believe a 7-game winning streak. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's what it is. So right now, with the Guelph hosting that game, they have a ton of momentum, and you just have to expect them to come out ready to play. But there's one thing about this Guelph team that I'm just not sure about it. And yes, they've won some big games, against Queens, against Western this season, losing out to McMaster, but I'm just not convinced by their offense, and that starts off with starting quarterback Lindsay. I'm just not sure if he has what it takes, to win a playoff battle of this magnitude against Queens. We're talking about protecting the football, and recently, yes, they've won some games, but I've seen games with to I don't remember which one. I think it was in that win against Queens. I'm looking at the stats while we're talking. It was last game versus York, and so Guelph close out the season 39-18 against York, which is like a 2-16, so not really necessarily a force. And Lindsay throws for 40%. 10 of 25, 163 yards, 1 touchdown against the 21st ranked pass defense in the country. So I'm just questioning it out loud, and I haven't seen him play, and maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't think that he's the type of leader of player that just can carry his team deep into the playoffs. It's kind of a Cinderella story for Guelph this season, and that's what you want. You like to see new programs on the rise coming up, and really backed by their university and everything. And I think it's a great time for the future. But right now, and we had Queens on the radar for the entire season. I just think that Queens is just a better program, a better team, and they're more prepared for this kind of situation. So for Guelph, I expect a tight battle, no doubt about it. But I think that Queens comes out on top of this one.
And McMaster against Western. Western giving up 35 points to Windsor. I don't know how Western's going to go in without Donnie Marshall. I think Will Finch is also still starting at quarterback. Do you see any team knocking off McMaster, especially in the semifinals?
No, we're going to make one thing clear to start off. McMaster, in my book, is going to the Vanier Cup without a doubt. Given that there's no injuries to key players. So that being said, I think McMaster is moving up. But this game against Western, nothing comes easy against Western, and they've had a tough season this year. I'm losing out to Queens, losing out to Guelph, losing out to Mac. It's not the same kind of performance that you use from this Western team. But, Coach Marshall has seen a lot of football in his career, and I'm sure he's going to come out with a team that's prepared and with a couple of wrinkles in his offense to try to score some early points against Mac. But, for Western, it's all about the run game. They average 289 yards a game. That's just unbelievable. Nearly 300 yards on the ground a game. So, for them, it's going to be key to establish that run game. And it all starts, obviously, with Garrett Sanvito, the leading rusher with 1,000 yards this season. 13 touchdowns, only 3 fumbles. So, for Western, they lose Varga, they lose their 2 top running backs. Coming into the season, and then there you go. They still have the leading rusher with Garrett Sanvito. So if they can establish that run game and early in the game, and then go off with some play action and get their QB outside of the pocket, running the ball, because we've seen big performances by Will Finch, on the ground as well. They can come in and make this a tight one, without a doubt. But for them, like I said, run game. They need to pound the ball, control the clock, and then make a couple of big plays out of that. Is Will Finch going to be able to carry his team? He's been banged up a little bit also. Will Finch is going to be a great player. He's going to have an awesome career in the CIS. But right now, going to Mac, facing the top team in the country, I think it's just going to be a great challenge. I believe he's going to learn a lot. I believe he's going to perform well, but I just don't think that the Western will be able to stop Kyle Quinlan and his offense. And, their defense is really top of the boards as well. So Mac wins out this one, I think, in convincing fashion, but not a blowout, not at all. I think Western is definitely, up there. It's a top 10 team in the country. And once again, it's that the strength of their program that just tells me that, this team is going to come in prepared, knowing that they have a shot at beating Mac, and they're going to give it everything they have But yeah, so this is the picture for me, and I think that Queens and Mac face off in the OUA final 2 weeks from now.
That'll be an interesting matchup. Last year, that was one of the defining moments for Mac when they defeated Queens at home. And moving on to what's happening in the Q, last week on this very podcast, we were talking to Michelle Belanger from the CIS, and we were talking about Bishops playing against Laval. Why isn't that happening anymore?
Yeah, well, there's a big mess right now going on in the RCQ. Concordia had played an ineligible player early in the season, in their opening matchup against Bishops. So because of that, that win goes to Bishops, and now Bishops, back in the playoff picture, and with this situation with ineligibility, it surfaced again last Friday night on Twitter. So the Twitter sphere goes crazy because we learned that Bishops might have used an ineligible player in that same game as well. And then later on in the weekend, Saturday morning, John Bauer of the RCQ confirms that there was an investigation on all 6 teams, but that only one player came out to be ineligible, and that's a player from Bishop. So what happens is that opening game between Concordia and Bishops, well, there's no winner to it. Both teams lose out because of ineligibility problems to their players. So what you have now is 2 teams that just lost a critical game, and now Bishops at 2-6 in a 9-game season, and Concordia at 1-7 in a 9-game season, which is kind of awkward. So both teams now drop down in the standings, and McGill is the big winner in this one because with a ranking of 2 wins and 7 losses, they squeeze into the playoffs in the 4th spot. So just to clarify that situation, the problem right now in the queue is that you have players coming from different backgrounds. Some players have played CJEP. Some players have played in Ontario or somewhere else in Canada. Some players have played, in civil, where they're where they live and haven't aligned in the scholarship system. So what you have is all those players coming from different backgrounds. Well, there's different regulations to each one of those, and each team just doesn't have the manpower to just double check everything. So they rely a lot on the information that the player gives them. As of, where they have played before coming to university. So if a kid comes in, and that's the same situation for Concordia and Bishops. So the kid comes in and goes, well, I played 3 years at CJEP, and now I'm in university, so you have an 8-year window. But what he didn't tell them is that prior to playing CJEP, well, he played some other football. And then he didn't tell them that, so that right now, those 2 players have actually entered this season in their 9th season, when you only have an 8-year window. That's 3 for CJEP and 5 for university. So that's the situation right now. And from speaking with John Bauer, they're really looking into it to resolve that situation, making sure that the regulations are a lot simpler and clearer for everyone. So we should expect changes for next year, that's for sure. So, that being said, McGill squeezes in the 4th place. They're in the playoffs. They're going to face Laval next week. And now Sherbrooke, in 3rd place, will be in Montreal for what looks to be, a huge game.
Well, if we're going to be talking MVPs, I guess McGill's MVP has to be the registrar.
and I think I saw you tweet that one as well. And and that's the thing is the teams just don't have enough resources to just double check everything. So yeah, you have to give credit to Laval, Montreal, Sherbrooke, and McGill for just making sure that their players were eligible. And right now, Bishops and Concordia just lose out to that. And Concordia finishing in 6th place. 3 years ago they were in the Dunsmore Cup and almost won out that one. With Liam Mahoney at quarterback. So right now, Concordia are really on a free fall, and you need to expect changes for the next season.
Well, from the looks of it, Laval should be able to beat McGill, even though it was close last time they played at Pep Stadium or Telus Stade now. But the Sherbrooke-Montreal game is the one that I'm really interested about. Last time those 2 teams played, it was a close one, with Montreal not able to really start steamrolling Sherbrooke. Sherbrooke really hung in there defensively.
We'll talk about Montreal-Sherbrooke first, and that's, the matchup, the marquee matchup of the weekend. Montreal, second place at 8-1, Sherbrooke, third place at 6-3. And they've played each other twice this season, and twice Montreal has won. They won 38-14, on September 1st, first game of the season, and then they won 15-6 on September 22nd. So right now, that's two teams that have played each other twice this season, but it's been over a month that they haven't seen each other, and a lot has changed since then. Sherbrooke is now on a 4-game winning streak. Montreal obviously, still good, with 8-1, beating Laval, and they're on their win streak as well. But Sherbrooke, and I was at the game this weekend, and for Sherbrooke, it all starts on the offense with Jeremy Rock, their quarterback. He's the guy, and if he's having a good game, well, the team has a chance to win, and if he's not having a good game, well, you can forget about it. Right now, Sherbrooke really unidimensional on offense. They're throwing the ball with a lot of success, top 5 with over 300 yards per game. J-Rock is really good managing the football. You look at his touchdown INT ratio, he's top of the board, only topped by Kyle Quinlan. So Rock, 18 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So that is really good for a second-year player. And that's going to be the key next week, is just to manage that football. I've said it, we're talking about Queens, and now it's the same thing for Sherbrooke. On offense, they need to protect the ball. They need to make sure not to give it to Montreal, because Montreal has that killer instinct that will just make you pay for your mistakes. But like I said, for Sherbrooke, it's through the air, because on the ground, they're the worst team in the country. With this week, they're now the second worst team with 79 yards on the ground each game. And, the playoffs, the temperature gets cooler, and you never know what happens, if you get some rain, some snow in there. So you need to be able to run the football. And Sherbrooke just hasn't had any kind of success this season running the football. Even this weekend against McGill, they couldn't close out the game on the ground. They had to throw the ball to close out the game. So that's really the biggest question mark for them on offense. And they're going to face a defense that is just stout. That's probably your best defense in the country there in Montreal. They're top of the board on defense in point per game, in yards per game, and in rush yards per game, with only 59 yards on the ground. Top of the boards with 39 sacks in the season. So Montreal is just really solid on defense. Jean-Samuel Blanc, their defensive end, just has tied the CIS record with 12.5 sacks in the season. So he's just having a monster season. Looking at their linebacking core, they're solid across the board, and their DBs are good as well. But the only weakness for that Montreal defense is probably on the white side DB squad. Their quarterback and their halfback on the white side. That's probably where you can beat them. And if there's one team out there that can do it, it's probably Sherbrooke, because they have what it takes to throw that football. But looking back at last year, both teams faced off in the semifinals last year as well. Sherbrooke had won the 2 meetings in the season, and now Montreal came into Sherbrooke and just kicked their butt, winning that one and moving on to the Dunmore. And what Montreal had done last year, and we probably can expect the same thing this season, is that they just didn't respect Sherbrooke's run game at all. They emptied the box with an extra defender in the coverage, and just Sherbrooke just wasn't able to throw the football for the entire game. And as Montreal had gambled on, Sherbrooke wasn't able to run either. So, I kind of expect the same strategy from their defensive coordinator, Noel Thorpe, this weekend, where you can see an empty box, no unblocked players, just playing man-on-man and trying to win those battles, and making sure that Sherbrooke just doesn't complete those deep passes that we've seen J-Rock throw. On the other side of the ball, you have a Montreal offense that is really well-balanced. Alex Nadeau-Pugh is their quarterback. Fifth-year quarterback, is just having the best season of his career by far. I mean, you've never had a Montreal quarterback, top of the charts in yards and other statistics. But Nadeau-Pugh is 7th in the country, with 2,100 yards. He's completing 68% of his passes, and that is really something, coming from Montreal, and that's traditionally been more of a run team. And, he's managing the football well, 13 touchdowns, 5 INTs. So if he can have a good game and just, manage the football, his players are probably going to make him look good, especially on the run game. Ransoné, probably the best runner in the conference, backed up by Nicolas Dubois, a rookie who's done a really good job as well. So I think Montreal comes in at this one really passive on defense, letting things come to them. And on offense, it's just about, running that football, managing the clock, going play action, running a little bit with Hughes, who had, 2 rushing touchdowns this weekend. And then, it can all come down to the special teams. And both teams have great returners. But, you have to give the edge on the kickers for Sherbrooke. William Dion, 5th-year player, your CIS all-time leader in field goals. So, it's going to be a tight one. And the thing I want to point out is that it's really hard for a team to beat the same opponent 3 times in one season. So Montreal has won twice, but will they be able to do it as a 3rd time? That is really hard. Their home field is probably going to give them the edge. So you can't expect Montreal to go through this one and face Laval in the Dunsmore. But Sherbrooke definitely has what it takes to beat Montreal. And for them, it's just, if they can manage just a little bit of run game, that's going to give some breathing room to J-Rock. And, from there, he's a top, he's a top 3 quarterback in the country, and he can make it all happen. So if he can have some protection and run the football, that's going to help him well. Just before we leave out this game, just want to note that the Sherbrooke defense, and I was looking at the numbers last week, and we don't really talk about their defense, but they're right up the boards as well. Top 3 in the rushing yards allowed per game. They're one of the top teams in takeaways in the country, and they're the team with the most defensive touchdowns with 5. So right now you're talking about a Sherbrooke team that is looking to protect the quarterback, protect the football on offense, and on defense it's all about creating turnovers, being aggressive, and disrupting the other team. So, you said it. Everybody knows it is going to be a great matchup between these two rivals, and we can expect a good one Saturday in Montreal.
And moving on to the last matchup, we already know Acadia is in the Loney Bowl, though. They have a spot for the Jewett Trophy. It'll be Mount Allison and St. Mary's taking place at Husky Stadium. I personally thought that X was going to get into it, but X falling off the map. Mount Allison slipping in despite Alex J. Wallach saying that this was a program that needed to be removed. They're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
What do you see happening in this one?
Yeah, I remember that post. It's a strange conference, really. You don't really know what to expect from this conference. Acadia is definitely the top dog in the AUS, and like you said, they're just waiting to see who they're going to play. But right now, this game, Mount Allison, I've seen them play McGill early in the season, losing out to McGill. And I just can't believe that this team is in the playoffs. And it's no disrespect to anyone, but really, you're talking about a team that had their ass kicked by McGill, a team that is 2-7, in the queue. So Mount Allison, but you need to look at the numbers. And what you see still is that Mount Allison knows how to run the football. And from seeing them play one game, Jordan Botay is just a man amongst boys on that field. He's huge. He's solid. You can't bring him down with only one tackler. So, he's probably their top player on offense. I mean, without a doubt, he's their top player on offense. 196 carries this season, 878 yards, 7 touchdowns. He did fumble the ball 4 times. So for them to have a shot at winning this one, well, they need to establish that run game, and they need for their best players to be their best players on the field, and that starts with Botay, because they haven't had success throwing the football at all this season. On the other side of town, you have a St. Mary's team that really, when we were talking about a matchup between St. Mary's and Mount Allison, well, you didn't need to argue a lot to say, St. Mary's is going to win easily that one, but things have changed since head coach Samara has left, and there's big question marks on that program, regarding who's their starting quarterback, what are they doing on offense really. They've had some success running the football recently. This weekend, they just closed out the season with a statement win, 49-3 against St. FX. So they come in the playoffs with some momentum. You know, they managed 615 yards of total offense in that game, and that is just looking at the numbers, 142 through the air, no interceptions, so that is key, but 473 yards rushing the football. That is just a lot of rushing yards, and you know it comes in. You know they have two running backs with over 100 yards, and that's Melvin Abankwa with 206 yards. You have Michael Dawes as well, 123. So add to that Dave Sabourin with 76 rushing yards as well. So it comes from, it's not only one player that gives all the yardage. That's what you get from Mount Allison. On St. Mary's, you know, they have a couple players who can run the football and make some damage. So, you know, I expect St. Mary's to go through, win that one. I wouldn't say it would be easy, but it's all about for them, you know, just making sure not to do too many mistakes, you know, take care of the football, be disciplined, and let the game come to you, you know. And you're talking, you know, the starting quarterback, Jean Legault, I know him really well. He used to play at Lennoxville, so I coached him during the summers. And that's, you know, that's a kid that's a bit limited throwing the football. You know, he can run it well, but for him, it's just about, and that's what I used to tell him, is just, you know, take what the defense gives you, and his players are going to make plays. You know, Kevin Woodrich is a wide receiver, 88 yards, 2 touchdowns in the last game of the season. So you know, just make sure not to the ball over, be disciplined, and St. Mary's is going to win that one because Mount Allison is just too unidimensional running the football with Bouteille. So we should have a matchup of Acadia and St. Mary's in the AUS final. But just a quick word on that one. You know, Acadia is looking really solid. Right now, Kyle Graves is in total control of his game. So St. Mary's needs a statement win to gain some more momentum going into that one, or it's going to be a blowout for Acadia.
And with that, just your last statement, who do you have for the Hec Creighton? The regular season's done, and the voting should be done fairly soon. Who do you have as number one for the MVP of the league?
Well, you know, you don't need the voting for that. I mean, Cal Quinlan is definitely the guy. There's no debate on that. You know, he's the best quarterback that the CIS has produced in years. I mean, you look at the numbers, and this guy is just playing some amazing football. You know, completing 69% of his passes for 2,500 yards. But it's the touchdown to INT ratio, 19 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. That's amazing. But when you talk about Cal Quinlan, you also talk about a guy who runs the football. I mean, he's been productive on the ground. It's just crazy, the numbers that he can put up on the ground. And I'm going on the website right now trying to find those numbers. And yes, he's put up some yards, but it's in the touchdown column that you really see his impact. 7 touchdowns on the ground, 550 rushing yards in the season. That's 10 yards a carry for Cal Quinlan. So he's a guy that just can't do it all. You know, he's proved it last year, winning the Vanier with his team. Came back this year after a stint with the Owls, and you can just tell that this kid is ready to be a pro. He just wants to end his career, you know, with another Vanier, but the Hec is already in the books for Quinlan. I mean, in my book, there's no discussion about it.
Thanks for joining us and trying to help us clear up that Q situation and give us some insight to the season or into the postseason. Thank you very much, JP. For JP Shoiry, I'm Kevin Garbuio, and this is another edition of Rouge Radio.